Finally, after six-ish, almost 7 months now, I am back on the bike after having ACL surgery. So, what better way to jump back into racing than get on a heavy bike and go tear through the woods? This seemed like a good, slightly lower pressure way to do it, rather than jumping on and racing the 300 and Vet A and really trying to push beyond where I'm at right now. I did end up racing the afternoon race on the 300 here. I raced in Vet A, but I do not have a rider pace right now. Definitely everything they say about gets in your head after you've hurt yourself and had to have surgery and it takes a minute to gain confidence. Everything they say is true. So this was a great way to get comfortable on the bike again and just do it in a little more relaxed way. Normally I'd be racing the 990, but that seemed very risky since I can't touch the ground at all and it's just a big heavy bike. So I brought the 690 Rally out. It's a Kit 690-ish bike. Uses the RFR tanks and plastics and all that. Weighs a little under 400 pounds. So slightly cheating compared to the rest of the crowd who are generally on twin-cylinder bikes. You can see there's a Tenere 700 in front of us. I think we had 9 guys for this class. So props to Fox Valley and Illinois and the Heavy Enduro crew for making it happen, because that's a pretty good turnout for the first time for doing something. So we had several of the T7s. There was a CRF 300L, so that would have been the smallest, lightest bike. There was a KTM 1290 Super Adventure R, BMW R1250 GS, whatever the first generation, the water-cooled one is. So yeah, lots of big iron out there in the woods. You can see the first part of the course here was really tight. We had a pretty good race going here at the beginning. We got lost once a little bit, and then we got lost here again pretty bad. I stalled the bike. This was the only time I nearly dropped it. And where I stalled it meant that I had to move before we could go anywhere. So was able to get out in front there just kind of accidentally. But during this time, Adam had gotten by and he took off, so I was working to catch him. Caught up here. He was on the MX Tech equipped Tenere 700. Really cool work they've been doing there for the suspension on that bike, and making it a really kind of race-worthy suspension over the stock hardware, which is good, but not maybe great if you're doing this kind of thing with it. I had another bit of a lucky break here. If you see where Adam goes, he ends up kind of going off on the main trail, and there was a banner that was down a little bit. So the actual race course went through here. You'll see him off to the left turning around. And, as with any race, when you make a pass, you want to prove to the other guy that you're going to make it stick, regardless of whether or not you can. So I did try to crank up the pace a little bit just to make sure that he couldn't see me and think that he had a chance of passing. He ended up being pretty close on my tail by the end of the race, so we had a pretty good race going there, even though we didn't necessarily know it at the time. The course here is on a little bit smaller piece of property. They jam a lot of trail into a fairly tight place. And they do a really good job of it. The trail is a lot of fun. It's in really good shape. It had rained here quite a bit only a few days before. There's so much sand in the ground that it was quite dry, and by the afternoon race was very dusty. The adventure bikes run with these are some of the vintage bikes, the women's class, the Sea Riders, which honestly, that's the right place for us. There's such a wide range of skill levels and bike capabilities with adventure bikes that if we were out there with A Riders, B Riders, we'd just be holding everybody up. So this ended up being the right place for sure. And rather than trying to block past people and stuff people into corners, you do try to relax a little bit, right? You don't want to run people over with a 400 or 500 pound bike. So taking it a little easy, looking for opportunities to roll through and taking those over the can. So yeah, overall went great. And parts of the course were very, very tight. 690s are pretty bad in terms of gearbox. They've got a nasty gap between first and second gear that adventure guys seem to like, but for racers, you kind of want a closer ratio gearbox. So you end up really having to rev out first gear, or you do what I'm doing and just lug the crap out of it and just use the clutch constantly. So it's now over a week later. My clutch hand still is a little bit sore from this and then a 2-hour race afterwards on the 300. They did have a little bit of technical stuff in here. So there was a go-around for this spot where you can jump this log. There were several other little logs and things on the course, but they were all, appropriate for the capabilities of the bike. And I know that the guys at Fox Valley had no idea what the capability of these bikes are. So I think they did try to make sure it was doable. The only spot that was maybe not so big bike friendly was there's a bypass by the lower motocross track area. That was where Adam had kind of bailed off. It was very tight. The R1250 BMW with that big flat opposed twin engine could not fit through part of that. So there was a little bit of a challenge there, maybe a little bit tighter than what these giant bikes can handle. The 690's trellis frame, typical KTM issues there where the turning radius is gigantic. If there's not enough space to kind of spin the back end around or do something like that, or you're just too tired to do it, it got pretty tight. I was on the steering stops frequently. Otherwise, yeah, great event. The bike did well. This was trying to, actually here's some video of that big BMW. You can see just how wide it is, and good riding on street tires and all that, but it is a lot of weight, and it's on a course like this where it is tighter, it can be a little bit of a handful, but everybody had a pretty good time. Seemed like talking afterwards, it was generally smiles all around, and hopefully everybody comes back out, because I think 9 riders, if we get a 9-rider crowd, that's very, very solid. The 690, the bike that I'm riding, has, definitely non-stock suspension. It's 300 mil travel. And I had just done some revalve work and was doing some tuning and testing on it, because I'm getting ready to go out and do a roadbook rally, do some roadbooks on it. And this was a good test for it. You hear me say that's one tank dry. The bike has 3 fuel tanks. It's got 2 in the front, 1 in the back. They have 2 separate fuel pumps. One for the front section, one for the rear. So I did have the rear tank hit reserve, which is about a gallon left, and then switched over to the front tanks. I didn't start full because it holds 9 gallons of fuel. I don't need that weight for a 50-minute race. It's a pretty short race compared to what we usually do for a hare scramble. On the little bikes, I'm used to doing a 2 or a 3-hour race for things like GNCC. So a little bit shorter, which is honestly nice for the big bikes. If it was wet, this would wear you out. We had near to hero dirt as you're going to get with this stuff. The traction was never something that I was worried about during this race. I was doing, as I was saying, suspension testing. I had a temperature tag on the shock, trying to figure out just how hot it was getting, because it seems like the shock cooks fluid very fast. I'll do like 20 hours or something of riding, and the fluid comes out dark, which is unusual. And I filled in, if you look up what the thermal tape test strips look like, I completely filled one in up over 200 degrees Fahrenheit, so the shock was well over boiling. It faded a little bit, mostly kind of in like a bleed type feeling, which I think is typical. You don't feel it so much in the tighter, slow stuff, but I think if you were to go out and go out in the desert, you would feel it fade a lot. So I'm not quite sure how to make this shock run any cooler than it does. It's a very short shock body, very aggressive linkage ratio. It doesn't hold a lot of fluid, and it's completely enclosed by the rear tank, so there's no airflow, which is a little bit of a challenge. It's just not much you can do with it. Thanks. This section of the course here, I left this clip in at the end. This was my favorite part of the course. Very flowy. It had nice little berms and ruts in there, so you could just grab traction. You know, if I had the confidence that I had pre-tearing my ACL, you could rail all this stuff and just haul through there. And I'm a little bit down on confidence, but it was still a lot of fun to cruise through here and get some flow going. The forks on the bike felt pretty good. They were absorbing things well. The shock is still super harsh. The linkage ratio is so strained on 690s, just like so many other things about them. It's very hard to make the rear end compliant without making it just bottom out constantly. So still more work to do on the bike, but overall, you know, even in slow stuff, beating the clutch up, and the fan was on the whole time. Never overheated, never hiccuped, nothing like that. So overall, it gives me some confidence that it's ready to go for the next things on the calendar for it. It's a big part of the purpose here. So that is race 1 of the 2024 Heavy Enduro Series. I believe there are 4 total races this year, so go over to the heavyenduro.com website, figure it out, or you can check out Fox Valley Off-Road. The information is also on their website, and come out and join for the next one. It is a great time.